I think our friends, the people that we choose to be around are a reflection of who we are at our core. If you have good friends who are kind and willing to sacrifice to help you, I think that says a lot about who you are as a person.
Yeah,
And
it's like you guys went like Voltron, like Super Friends Unite.
yeah, it really was like that. We were helping making phone calls, there were all the phones were being used at once and, troubleshooting and just trying to figure out like the best plan of action.
If you feel like you have to do something to maintain the friendship, like you have to sacrifice or give up your happiness to maintain the friendship, I think that's probably an early indicator or could be a warning that you at least need to have some conversations. In today's episode, we're diving deep into the friendships and family connections that shape who we are. We share real stories, unexpected lessons, and powerful insights on how to build and maintain the relationships that really matter the most. By the end of this episode, you'll have a new perspective on the people in your life and the kind of connections you truly want to build. And hello, everybody. Welcome to the Crack the Code podcast. I'm your host, Clint Baggett, and I'm here with my co-hosts, Shannon Backett and Shane Russell, aka the Hood Hippie. And this is the Crack the Code podcast, the podcast where we talk about topics that inspire us and get our creative engines turning and help us to understand the perspective of humanity through each other's eyes. And we do this in the form of conversation and just having some fun with it and exploring interesting things. We hope that you enjoy this and that you're along this journey with us and that our conversations are inspiring conversations in your homes as well. So with that, today we wanted to talk about friends and family, right? The unexpected ways that friends change and shape your life over time and how those roles show up, how sometimes maybe they're difficult, and the value that they provide even when we don't maybe realize that they're providing yet, or sometimes it takes us a while to learn, but that's what we want to dig into. So with that, I want to turn it over to Shannon, and Shannon, why don't you get us started?
All righty. Part of the reason that I really wanted to talk about this week is I know Shane and I both have had some, interesting experiences over the past couple weeks and have survived it with the help of some friends. And I just feel like friendship, probably more than anything, really helps shape who we are as people. And, these friendships, like these people who are your friends are there around you because they want to be around you. So I kind of feel like it's more of an important relationship than even family. Like you have to be around family, but you may not necessarily choose to be around family. But like friendship in particular, like you choose them and they choose you. And I really feel like it's one of the best support systems that anybody can have.
Yeah, it's like a spiritual adopted family in a way. I say the word spiritual, but you know what I mean. I'm not talking about like religiously spiritual, but
No,
like it's
I,
energetic family, right? Or just, it doesn't really, it's not biological, it's just friend family, right? And your friend family is super powerful and can be very helpful. And I mean, family is really important to me too. Like I think family relationships are crucial, but there are definitely situations out there where and I think sometimes your family members are not your friends, right? And that has to be that has to be understood too. You can fall, and I think even in a friend relationship, sometimes you can fall into like an unfriendly time where you're not really benefiting each other. But at the end of the day, I think friends are the people who stick with you, who care about you. And like one thing that like to me has always been kind of that marker is someone who's actually interested, invested in, and can celebrate the success in my life the same way I'm interested and invested and can celebrate the success in their life. To me, like that's like the penultimate of friendship, right? When you both want to see each other succeed and you're there to hold each other's hand and support each other and cheer each other on and give each other perspective. And sometimes even have those hard conversations where you're like, hey, look, I know what you want to hear me say is this, but right now I think what I'm going to do is tell you the truth, and this is this, right? And those conversations can be tough, but I think that's what friends do for each other. That's kind of where my head is. Shane, what are you thinking?
I mean, friends, to your point, especially at this time of our lives, like the people that after all the experience and fake people and all that, like, like you become a little bit more particular with who you are willing to invest in. But when it's a symbiotic situation and everybody's benefiting from the investment, it becomes like sacred circle business, And the people that get filtered in at this point are important to uh, to helping us up. We help each other up. We have good manners and and friends tell each other the things that they may not want to hear, but they need to hear. You know what I'm saying? They love each other unconditionally, and you know, quality sanity check each other. Like, hey, I was thinking about doing this. Like, pretty sure like at least 100 times you told me like you did it that way, but you could have done it this way, or like Shane, don't ever do that because that's the dumbest thing you've ever said. Like, you know. And
Yeah.
in retrospect, I look back and I'm like, oh man, I'm so glad I didn't do that. Glad I listened to Clint. You know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and likewise too, like that, it goes both ways. I mean, we've talked about this before where I think it's like the left eye, right eye thing. When you're looking from, your singular
Totally.
perspective, you only see part of it. And sometimes in that perspective, it can create the illusion of something being other than what it is. And someone who has a slightly different perspective can sometimes see out around the illusion. And by sharing
Yeah.
that information, you you enhance each other's ability to perceive reality, right? And that can be challenging because sometimes too, like, you can't be overly dominant, right? You can't The right eye can't say no, what you're seeing is wrong, and the left eye can't say no, what you're seeing is wrong. You have to go, okay, what are
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
seeing together? When we
Yeah.
both look at this, what are we seeing? And so, I've offered that for you, but you've offered that to me like a thousand
Yeah. Yeah.
times. So has Shannon. And that's the great thing about this is what
So
I'm
true.
learning more and more is like sometimes like it's not just about even left and right eye. Like, Shannon's kind of our third eye. All the spiritual people really like that. She can be the third eye, like
She is the
but
third
Yes,
like
eye.
I see all. I am all
yeah.
knowing.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but I mean that's to me that's just a big value of friendship is having that. And I think you were talking a little bit about, just being friendly. I think there's, being friendly, there's levels of friendship, and then maybe even beyond that they're friends, you know what I mean? And somewhere in there, like, family is across that spectrum. I find family can be anywhere across that, but it's about the the quality of of the relationship that you have with that person. Like, it's good to
It's
be
a
friendly. Well, go ahead.
no, it's the respect and the sincerity and the um mindset behind it, or the that we're approaching it in the right uh intent. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Intention behind it, I think, is important because like my son and I have like the most sincere, honest, beautiful relationship of really anyone ever in my life. It's a
Yeah.
cool thing, and but we
Yeah.
can keep it real with each other. It's
Yeah.
truly love, unconditional love.
Dude, I think you said it so good right there, the intentions behind it, because I feel like that is a big part of it is, when you can have that friendship where the intention really is just to see us both move forward into success, or to see us move forward into happiness and love and life and get to share a thing. I think, like a lot of people in the world of networking, where it's not about what it's about who. They
Yeah,
establish a lot of what they want to call friendships, but they're really networking agreements. I know this
based off
person
of
for
who
the
you
benefit
know.
of that. I know
Yeah,
that
yeah,
person for the
exactly.
benefit of this, because I
Yeah,
know this person. And networking, like, don't get me wrong, it's powerful, and having a good network is great. And if that network is full of people who are genuine friends, it can be even more,
yeah,
incredible for you, right? Like, but the network for the sake of the network, for just the exchange of it. If the intention is just that, look, I'm going to be friendly to you so that I can get this benefit, and as soon as you're not satisfying or that benefit's no longer valuable, I no longer need you, right? And that's where you feel betrayal and kind of like the backstabbing and all the
Right.
things that really hurt people. And like, you might believe you have a really strong friendship with someone, but then it comes to that point, and you cross that road and you realize that, oh, it's not what I thought it was. And that can be painful, and I think it's painful because inside, what we want is friends. We want to share good intentions with people, right?
Well, we do. We definitely do. And we get disappointed because, we oftentimes just want to see the good in people and we just see their best, but then they let us down or whatever. But even better in situations where you meet people that have the same like character, like moral compass and value system that you do, like when you have that common denominator, and and our action speaks who we are, and time reveals it. And so
Yeah.
when you finally do meet those people that change your trajectory, like in every way, and to make you better, like you got to embrace them. And all my life, like like I thought I was so popular and stuff. I mean, I have like so many friends and stuff. And my dad used to always be like, you think these people are so important? Like, at the end of your life, you'd be lucky to have like more than, you'll be able to count them on one hand. And I was like, no way, they all love me. And then like that didn't work out very well. They all like definitely didn't, and but they're still like my sacred circle. And these people, like y'all, have been filtered through, and just we've been adding on it. Like friends of y'all's are friends of mine, and friends of mine are friends of y'all. It's a because because we have that same common denominator. Shannon, what do you think?
No, I totally agree. I think our friends, the people that we choose to be around are a reflection of who we are at our core. If
Oh,
you have
absolutely.
good friends who are kind and willing to sacrifice to help you, I think that says a lot about who you are as a person. And, I do agree, like good friends are extremely hard to come by. So they're kind of a really valuable commodity
Totally.
in life, because they're there through the tough times. They
Yeah.
are the perfect person, if you're in a weird situation, because they're, just on the perimeter, just on the outside to be able to go, you're too close to see this, but maybe you're not in like the best place, or, you're in an unhealthy relationship or something like that. And I really think like that kind of feedback is super important to have in your life. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, also there's a responsibility in the role of being a friend too, because sometimes like we want to give advice and we want to give feedback, and in years of you know trials and mistakes, learning by experimentation and doing, I found that, what is it that I can say and do for my friends that really help them the most, right? Like if I want to see my friends succeed, I want to see the people I care about and the people I'm fortunate enough to interact with, whether it's, a client friend, a work friend, a personal friend, all the friend level of friendship. What I found is that it's it's being able to see the person for the potential of what they can and what they want to become, and understanding that those two parts are important. We all have the ability to become anything that we want to, but it's driven by what do we want to become, and like I respect the fact that all my friends, like, they can be whatever they want to be and whatever they want to do, and at the same time, like, if they choose to go down a road where I think that they could cause harm to their self or harm to other people, I express that and I'm like, hey, look, you're I see you making that decision, and like, here, if you want my perspective on it, I'm willing to share. And if sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, and if they do, I'll kind of go, hey, this is kind of what I see, and just be careful. But like, I was thinking, even with Castle, right? He said he had a friend that he was going to be friends with, but then that friend was being really mean to other children at school. And he's like, I'm not going to be friends with you anymore, right? Like, I'm not going to go down that path with you. And I was really proud of him for that, for standing up for, what he believes in and who he wants to be as a person. And I mean, he's, just barely 9 years old. I think it's impressive. And I think that's part of it, right? Is being that holding on to being a good friend. Like, if you want to have good friends, you should endeavor to be a good friend. And how can you be the best friend that you can be, right?
Yeah, totally. I have one of my besties, like I always admired about her from like very, very early on in our friendship. I mean, we've going on like 30 years at this point, but I was always just so in awe of her ability to be so selfless and caring, and literally like she was that person, like if you got a flat tire or you needed like somebody quickly or you had an emergency, like she would be the one to call and she was there. You hear
Yeah.
lots of people saying like, "Oh, if you ever need me for anything," like people say that, but not everybody follows through. And she was like the epitome of the follow through on that. And I always, like, through the course of our friendship and even to this day, was like, man, I really want to be like that. I want to be
Oh,
like her, and I really feel like her friendship has helped me to develop to who I am today because of just seeing how she was. I was like, I really want to be like that.
well,
Yeah, but when you have people like
oh, go ahead.
when you have people like that in your life, though, like, even like you try every other option to even get a ride if you break down or something, to even not have to put them out because you know that they'll do it no matter what. So you know what I'm saying. So you don't like there's no crying wolf or like and because you know you don't take it for granted. You know what I'm saying? Like because some people do, they don't appreciate those people, and they take more than they give and stuff.
Yeah, and I'm sure she's had to learn and deal with that too, right? That
Totally.
be that, and because I was going to say, Shannon, she'd be proud of you because you are like that. But you and I both learned that if you want to be open and available to help people, to Shane's point, you got to be careful because some people will just take advantage of that. And that again leads to that kind of agenda driven, relationship, and it leads to feelings of betrayal. And so for the compassionate person to put up that barrier of, look, I'm here to help and love, but I'm not here to get screwed over. It's holding that kind of noble space of, look, I'm not here to fuck with you, but I'm absolutely not here so you can fuck with me either.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Yeah, totally, totally.
Yeah.
And some people are for a reason, and some people are for a season, and some people are for a lifetime. But like when we're blessed enough to find like what we have and people that we love, like like they're our own, it's the same stuff in them and that's in us. Like it's a blessed thing, and we got to hang on to them because they change our trajectory, and it's symbiotic. We make each other better, and help each
Yeah.
other to the highest ground. It's like a tribe thing. Like we can do more together, sharing the best information to be our best selves.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Shannon, you were saying that, you've had some experience, and of course I know, but people listening don't. And I think it'd be great if do you want to just kind of break down that whole friendship thing that happened with you over the week and what you were alluding to? Because I think it's just a pretty amazing story of friends coming together and then experiencing something unexpected and then bonding together like friends and figuring it out and like coming out on top. So, yeah, take it away.
Yeah, sure. So my two besties, we've been friends for, like I said, going on 30 years. We're the three musketeers. It's me and Katie and Jen. And Jen lives in Canada, just outside of Toronto, and she came down here to spend the week with, me and Katie, because we both live here in Arizona. And so we were here, having girl time and, playing cards and just catching up and just being together because we only really get to do that about once, like every 2 years when we can, schedules work out and travel plans work out. We got to meet somewhere. Um, but while she was here, her mom was down in Cabo San Lucas, doing a scuba diving trip. And one day she was getting off the boat and was getting out of her wetsuit into her regular clothes, and she slipped. And when she fell, she kind of flung her arms out and she hit her arm against the door of, the bathroom where she was at, and she broke her arm. She had a compound fracture on her right wrist, so part of the bone was, sticking out. So they took her to the emergency room down there in Mexico, and they wanted like $20,000 American up front to do surgery. And she felt like super uncomfortable at the hospital and kind of didn't feel like it was like really up to health standards where she was at.
Yeah.
So she had her friend who she was there with call Jen and was like, she fell, she broke her arm. We don't really know what to do. We can't afford treatment down here. It's crazy. And so we were like, okay, like we're gonna figure this out. We'll call you back. So the three of us basically turned Katie's house into like a command center.
Yeah,
And
it's like you guys went like Voltron, like Super Friends Unite.
yeah, it really was like that. We were helping making phone calls. There were all the phones were being used at once, and troubleshooting and just trying to figure out like the best plan of action. And do we try to get her mom back to Canada? Like, is it safe for her to fly with a compound fracture? All this stuff. So we finally figured out like the best course of action was actually just put her mom on a plane, have the hospital wrap up her arm as best as she could, and put her on a plane to Phoenix, which was only like a 2 hour flight from Cabo, as opposed to trying to get her back to literally like Toronto, Canada.
So
So
in the military, what we'd say is you conducted an exfil operation.
yeah, totally, right. So yeah, well, I got on the phone and talked him through how to get, her friend through security to like help her mom get on the plane. And we got flights booked, and we used like Katie's airline points, and like it was literally like a group effort. So we got her mom on the plane like the next day. Her mom flew. Like, what a trooper. This woman
Oh
literally
my
got on an
gosh.
airplane with like just the
Oh
most
man.
basic of a splint with like a compound fracture. And so
And a
I
protruding
drove,
bone.
yeah, with protruding bones. So I drove all of us to the airport because I knew the airport best, dropped them off in baggage claim so that they could go get her mom and get baggage. I went to the cell lot waiting, drove back, picked them all up, loaded up the car, and then we all went straight to the emergency room.
What?
And yeah, and it just was like we were all there. Like Katie had to leave to go take care of something, and then she actually ran an errand for me while she was out that I needed to get done. So she took over some of like my personal stuff I needed to do. So I stuck there with Jen, and we got her mom in and taken care of. And Jen can't handle any sort of like blood or gore or any of that stuff. So like anytime they like brought out x-rays or had to draw blood or do any of that stuff, like she stepped out. But like I'm super cool with all of that stuff. So like I hung in there with her mom, and literally it was just like the three of us all together handled this crisis that, you
Yeah.
know,
And when you came together, you all utilized your own personal and individual strengths, wherever that was, to accommodate, help, and assist and support,
yeah.
and it's just pretty awesome. And I love it. I just want to like feel like I want to give it up for the moms because there's like this is three moms coming together, or
Oh
friends,
yeah.
three friends coming together to, to be there for each other. But then there's also this layer of moms behind it. So there's, Trudy, who was doing who is the one out there diving. But then, both of your friends' moms are powerful and wonderful and beautiful and amazing people. And like, to see you guys come together like that, it's just like generations. And, I love that. I don't know. Like, I love to see women in their full power, like just getting it done. Because honest to God, I feel like half the time you guys are way better than the dudes at doing all this stuff. Like,
Me
I was just
too.
I was just watching,
I
like, man,
agree
you
with
guys are
that.
like on it. Like, like
Yeah,
this is
yeah.
pretty critical operations happening right here, and timing and coordination. It was just amazing. It was impressive.
Yeah, we literally like we took care of business like quickly and efficiently, and her mom is totally fine. She had surgery while she was here. We got them back, to the airport. We got them safely back to Canada, and everything was taken care of. And like, even just sitting out there talking about it, like, because we dealt with a similar crisis like 2 years ago, but with Katie's mom, crazy enough, while we were all together. And, we are just sort of like, man, like the three of us are like the strongest when we're together,
Yeah,
and that's what, 30 years of friendship is. It's like, each other's strengths and weaknesses. And when somebody can't handle, somebody else steps in, and like we, took care of the crisis. And like these girls are my sisters. I don't have any sisters. They're my sisters.
yeah,
And they're honorary aunts to our kids. And yeah, they're more than friends, really. Like they are family.
Positive vibe tribe.
you're
Yeah.
like you're like Charlie's Angels without the Charlie, which is even better, right? Like you're just the angels. You're just the angels,
You
right?
know
Like
what? You know what? We don't need a fucking Charlie.
that's right. You don't need a fucking Charlie. I love it. Oh, that's so cool. Yeah. No, I like now people are gonna be calling like we need Shannon, your this angel service, right? You have this
Yeah,
random phone, like people I've got an uncle in Cozumel, I need to exfil.
yeah, totally. Yeah, at this point, like it was just funny like how, it it worked out. So, but it
Well,
worked out.
and it's amazing because like, in this day and age, like that's not something people had to think about 200 years ago. If you had a family member who left your township or whatever, it was kind of like, good luck. I hope we see you again. You know what I mean? Like, because once you're out there in the wild world of whatever, like, who knows? But like now, like, we can stay in touch with each other. We can call each other. We can coordinate. And it takes that because, like, you're talking about crossing countries. You need borders and documents, and there's regulations, and how do you get through customs, and the timing of flights, and different healthcare laws and rules. I mean, like it is a complex operation, but I mean, it's amazing to me that we can be at this place, have being able to do these things. So, you have friends and family, just, what you might consider just ordinary people living their lives that can come together all of a sudden and become this power unit. Like it's incredible. And that's like, I think I talk a lot about like the find your path, and getting into alignment and getting into your highest potential, and connecting to that thing that drives you forward and brings out the best in you. That's just the first part of it, because
Yeah.
the reason you can do all that is when you head down that path is you end up in situations like yours where you're with other people who are also doing that and supporting you and loving you, and when you need to come together and become a power unit, you can just whoosh, and there it is.
Yeah. Yeah. That's kind of like the biggest thing, really. Like whether it's your friends or your family, like as long as you've got a good support system, like you can really accomplish just about anything.
Yeah.
So I'd like to interject with a little of my own personal experience. It has everything to do with all this.
Yeah. Yeah. Please do.
So, a dad, like happily married, like children, everything, like achieving the greatest success I ever imagined in my career. Then a whole bunch of life happened. And then all of a sudden, like things were totally different, and had to figure things out. And the the person that I was raised to be and that I am inside, um, I'm so close with my family, and the friends that really matter and that I really matter to them, they're still here. And so after all this drama and trauma, and really at the end of the day, it was kind of like shedding a skin. A lot of things that had to happen for me to get to where I'm going had to be removed from my life. And I realize that like sometimes like blessings come in painful wrapping, you know. But anyway, so I ended up had an opportunity to go be with my parents and help them like finalize our new house. And throughout that time, I've had a few sacred circle close friends, uh, like you guys, that have stuck with me. But it's been only me and y'all and my family investing in me and keeping me from going into dark places when they could have been there. And really getting back to my roots and getting back to center and having that unconditional love, people that love me that aren't trying to take anything from me and that I'm able to give back to and the reciprocate,
Yeah.
it helped me. I had to heal and grow to get to the point where am now, which Tuesday I just arrived in Chicago. I started my new job on Wednesday. I had the greatest week ever. I'm like, like I had to hang on, and the people that invested in me for the what's in my heart and the character and what I value, and it's the same. And you know, um, I wouldn't be here without them. I've never felt this grateful in my life. So friends and family mean so much to me. Everything. It's about
Yeah.
them that I'm still rambling.
Yeah, dude, it's beautiful, and congratulations too on that, right?
Oh,
Like,
thank you, thank you.
it has been, and there's, the part also that you played in that, even for like, you're right, like I've watched you and been there with you as you're going through this, and but like, you have to be willing to accept that level of help, right? And want it and be open to it. And sometimes it's hard, but the amazing thing is, you were and you needed it, and
Yeah,
you had, having that network to fall back on. And like,
yeah,
and what's interesting, I could say, even like while you were going through those dark times, we talked about it, like I was also going through transitions in my life and trying to understand, what does this new world look like? For me, a lot of things shifted during the period of COVID. Yeah, I mean, COVID itself happened, but in that course of that time, the world kind of changed a lot too.
yeah,
Jobs changed, how you get hired, companies. There were so many businesses that went out of business and so many new things up, and technology shifted directions, and it got kind of chaotic. And a lot of people have been caught, in the mix of this. People who felt like they had lifelong careers don't anymore, and someone, who maybe didn't feel like they had any opportunity all of a sudden did, and like everything was going in every direction. And it felt chaotic, right? And so, that pressure comes down. So, like I appreciate the fact and appreciate you for the fact that like even while you were going through that, you are still helping me along the
yeah.
way, man. And and I believe, and I think that's what you're expressing, is I was helping you too. And I mean, that's what
Well, yeah,
friends do for each other,
symbiotic,
right? Yeah.
symbiotic. Yeah, lean on me when
Yeah.
you're not strong. I'm just
Yeah.
playing.
Yeah. I was gonna let you
And
go, man.
Shane, sing it.
I'm just playing, man. Anyway, might
But
have to
yeah,
try out
like
karaoke
so.
up in here in Chicago.
Sorry, say that again.
I might have to try out some karaoke up in here in Chicago. I have no idea what I'm doing, but it's awesome. I'm just doing it. Go ahead.
Yeah, I know. I'm feeling the same thing. I want to just get out and do it. But and this is what, like, another great thing about having friends, right? You can do stuff like that. But good point, because this kind of brings me to this, like, this is what I was thinking about. We're talking about friends. We're talking about the value of friends and the value of friendship, how to be a friend and all this stuff. But like, what if you do if you're in a place where you don't have any friends yet? Or, maybe your friends are distant or they're long distance like we are now. You just moved to a new location, and, like you're there, you got to build a brand new network where you're at, right? At close local network. Sure, you've got us as your friends, but there's only so much support we can do from here, and there's only so much that, we can accommodate, and we need a kind of a wealth of friendships, close in proximity and distant, that can support us. So I don't know, you want to talk about that for a minute, like,
I mean,
finding friends and how to make friends.
yeah, no. Well, one thing about something valuable that I've learned over this last little bit is to be content with who I am and the joy and the blessings that I have, no matter how like subatomic they are, I can still focus on them.
Yeah.
So I don't, I'm not in any rush to like put myself out there and in a way that like I don't need anybody else because I have y'all and
Yeah.
my people, you know what I'm saying? So to be able to be the best friend to the people that are my best friends, like I mean, this is graphic, but I mean, I'd take a bullet for you guys. You know what I'm saying? Like in the
Yeah.
face. Like I love my friends, and so to be able to be the best friend for my family, my children, and the people counting on me, and just the people that my friends and the people that deserve it, uh, like it's not about me anymore. It's about them and y'all, and it's about like sticking it out and doing what I can do to give back to everybody. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
go ahead.
And I think too, like, and you bring up a good point, like that's a good place to come from when it comes to making friends, right? When if you're, I always say this, like if someone's like, if for people who are feeling lonely or feeling like they need a lover and all that kind of stuff, and I know this saying goes through the wash a lot, and so it doesn't feel as impactful, but you really have to be the thing for yourself that you're
Totally.
wanting from someone else first. And if you're
Yeah.
happy and whole inside,
Yeah.
making friends isn't difficult because you're not leaning on them. You're not
Yeah.
trying to create agreements, emotional negotiations with people and emotional commitments and emotional, dependencies. You're showing up emotionally secure and strong. And so when you come into that, you don't no one's going to feel that lean or that need or that
Yeah.
pressure from you, and it's going to allow people to feel more comfortable. And in return, you also have to understand that there may be people who are like, wow, you look really centered and secure in yourself. I'm going to lean on you, and sometimes a little bit of that's okay, right? Because you
Yeah.
can teach people like, hey, look, you lean on me a little bit to learn how to stand on your own. But,
Yeah. Yeah.
part of respecting friendship is that we're helping each other stand up and be
And that's why
independent.
it's and that's why it's important, I think, to be the best friend. We have to take that time and to stay focused on becoming our best self so we can show up with the goods for those that matter the most to us. You know what I'm saying? But also to your point, and to everyone deserving and everybody that we can to some degree. You know what I'm saying? But
Yeah.
and I always say this, and that it's just my mantra or whatever. But like all, if we shine on each other, we all grow. You can't stop the shine. We don't possess a shine. Nobody can take the shine from us. You know what I'm saying? So just shine. Now there are those people that can like that are parasitic, and we just have to. We always have a choice about who we choose to do whatever we do with whomever we're doing it with, right? And so like it's an important thing, to be careful of who we choose to invest in. But then when it reaches the point where these people have been filtered all the way through and they're like your people, like we got to like stick together no matter what. Like it's
Yeah.
it's sacred circle business.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. Like a really good friendship is balance. It's equal parts give and take. And if it's,
Yeah.
lopsided where one person is just taking and taking and taking, like
Yeah, it
it's
ain't cool,
probably not
man.
the healthiest
Yeah.
friendship or
And
any kind of relationship, right? There have been
totally,
plenty of family members that I'm like, I don't really want to
totally.
do anything
Yeah.
to do with you anymore because all
And
you
you're not
do is
obligated
take.
just because, yeah, you're not obligated just because DNA at a certain point, just for like your own mental health reasons and just what's right for everybody. You have to like, sometimes you just have to go cut the loss, or whatever, or at least have healthy boundaries.
Exactly.
Yeah, healthy boundaries is big, right? And I think because
Yeah.
it comes down to like, you know, we are all born with what we're born with, and we have amazing potential. And if we'll stand up and strive for our independence, we can be of so much benefit to everybody around us. And it's beautiful and wonderful when we can come
Totally.
together in that way. Because then when the world presents us challenges, when life presents us challenges that are bigger than any one of us individual, because we all have individual strength, we can combine forces together and we can do amazing things and overcome that and push through. But you can't get to that point of being ready if in the non-stressful times, someone is sitting there just siphoning gas out of the tank, right? Going, oh, look, I'm going to let you do all the work for me, and I'm just going to lean on you and become, whether it's financially, emotionally, or physically dependent on you, so that you support me. And it can be hard to have that balance, especially in like close relationships. Those dependencies kind of build up naturally, and if you spend a lot of time with someone, what's interesting is you will build up kind of natural dependencies on each other. And that's what can make sometimes losing someone that you're close to really hard, is because there is that, that connection and that attachment to that individual for, the role and the relationship that you had in life. And then when that's gone, that's painful, right? And it kind of always brings me to this question. I'd love to just hear both of your thoughts on this. Like, you know, is there a clear marker when you've crossed that line from into that unhealthy dependency? Like, because like you're right, it's about setting up boundaries. But sometimes I think those boundaries get crossed and we don't even realize it. Like we didn't intentionally, we didn't know we needed a boundary. But sometimes you find yourself in that place where the boundary's been crossed and this dependency has been established. Like, what is that line? How would you define it? Can you define it?
Man, that's a tough question. I don't know if you can clearly define it. I mean, there's probably like little subtle signs that maybe you're not even aware of, like maybe say that person is calling you and you're sort of like, ugh, I'll call them back later. You know what I mean? Like you're putting off talking to them or hanging out with them or whatever, like, and maybe you don't really
Well,
know why, but you're just sort of like, okay, I can't deal with
Yeah.
this right now. Like
Yeah, just
that.
like an
I mean,
internal cue that you might be getting taken advantage of if you're already kind of expecting not to get a value return out of engaging with this person, right? Or not it not being mutually beneficial, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
well,
interesting. Go ahead,
I
Shane.
mean, in my experience, I mean, y'all know that like honor and loyalty and integrity is like paramount to who I am, and like and so there's no reason to lie to me about anything, But
Yeah,
some,
right. I got what I was like, what is he talking? Oh, okay, I see what you're doing there. Yeah.
but I
Ooh,
mean,
hint, hint, hint.
there's been times that I've invested every fiber of my being into some people, and would have been there to the last heartbeat and given them everything that I had forever, you know, and
Yeah.
they took that, um, and I don't know if it was like multiple personality or like bipolar or just like sociopath or I don't know, but but when I've given somebody like every like my heart and soul, and to have them like I don't know eat it in front of me, it ain't cool. But so that's where kind of where I draw the line. But it's also helped me like establish a more solid boundary of who I even let in, and because sometimes I guess what I'm trying to say is for me, like a pretty smile and some other parts will kind of sometimes maybe not the most ideal people have used their assets to, and I don't know. That's probably way off topic, but like
No, I
it's
think I think it all, because it's a bit, it can get messy, and in a weird way, this messiness is yet, I think, like another value of friendship, because you really have to start to explore these things. What's too much and what's too little, and what's appropriate and what's inappropriate, and what does trust feel like, and how do I know that I have trust? And
but
I
just
think,
being honest with each other, like, hey, I don't
dude,
love
so much,
you, and I
yeah.
want to, yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's all you have to, you just have to do that. And I would always been there and like, but like to like live like a double life and stuff, like, come on, man.
I
You
think,
know what I'm
yeah,
saying?
exactly. And I think you're nailing it, because that's where I was going with it too, right? Like, it's like for me, that line is, if I can't be honest with you, then there's a problem. You know what I mean? If
If I
I
can be
can't,
honest with you, I don't want you around me, and I don't want to be around you. I mean, other than maybe a cop sometimes, like I'm not gonna I'm not gonna lie about anything. I have nothing to lie about because I don't have to
yeah.
lie to myself about anything, and I don't have to
Yeah.
lie to the people closest to me about anything. Like
Yeah.
like
Right. I think that that's a big part of it right there. If you feel like you have to do something to maintain the friendship, like you have to sacrifice or give up your happiness to maintain the friendship, I think that's probably an early indicator, or could be a warning, that you at least need to have some conversations. Because what I found is, like, sometimes, like, you get into those spots with somebody, and if you have that conversation, and you have to be delicate and understand and make sure that you don't come across judgmental or something, and just really express like, hey, this is what's going on in my experience. And you know I just want to talk about this with you, so like I can understand what's happening, right? That the people who have shown up to be my dearest friends and longest supporters, we can have those conversations, right?
Yeah.
But if I'm like, hey, look, I don't really like this, or I feel like, this thing is making me this, and the person gets ultra defensive, you know what I mean, and starts to attack, like there's an interesting attachment going on there. Maybe they have their own kind of things that are going on that they need to go through. But to me, it's always when I'm like, well, look, we're going to need space, because I'm not going to share space with someone who's going to essentially punch me in the face, right? Like
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't need that from you, and I don't have to take that from you. And and I'm happy to hold firm my boundaries and go, look, like I hold space for me to have my own self-respect too, and I believe that if we're going to enter into partnership or friendship or a relationship, that it shouldn't be difficult for me to hold my container of self-respect. I'm not asking
Yeah. Yeah.
anybody to do anything to make me feel self-respected, right? I'm holding my own container of self-respect, and I'm holding, my own value set for myself, and I carry the weight of that, and that's, my responsibility, how I think about life and how I show up and how I think about myself. These are my things to carry, and I'm going to carry those in a way that is healthy to me, and that should be compatible with the people that I'm friends with.
Yeah, I find for myself personally, like the older I get, like the more defined my boundaries are. Like maybe in my 20s, those
Absolutely.
boundaries were like a little flexible, but
Yep.
I just don't have the bandwidth. I don't have the
Discriminating.
interest. Yeah, I don't have the interest in the
Yeah.
drama. I
Me
don't,
neither.
if you're going to bring me stress or drama
Yeah.
in my
She said
life,
bandwidth.
yeah,
Yeah.
you could tell I'm married to a tech guy.
Oh my gosh, she made a song out of it.
But like,
No, but
yeah,
seriously,
I
I don't
just,
either. Like,
yeah,
there's
and
no,
yeah, I just, I find, yeah, I'm much more discerning on who I spend my
yeah.
time with and how that
Yeah,
time
because the
is
window's
spent.
closing. Yeah.
Yeah,
And it took a lot of investing in the wrong people to get us here to know, like, to be so blessed to have each other, but then to have others that are kind of coming into the community, and that we can like build, like, you know, that we can all bring our best information and ideas and inspiration, and to share with each other, so that we can all live our best lives. I love what we're doing with the community.
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, and to demonstrate and help, establish friendships, and it's like it's interesting, but this isn't curriculum that you're going to learn in school. You might learn this through
In
social
kindergarten.
interaction at school. You might learn some of it. Maybe you have some teachers who are teaching and guiding in this way, but there's a lot of this that you just have to kind of find out from experience, and you know
Yeah.
it's an interesting endeavor to just to build friendship, and it's, I don't know, it feels like, I feel like you could really expand the concept of being friendly and friendship and partnership and nobility and trust and honor all the way out into, if we could show up more individually in our lives that way, could we show up more as nations in the world that way? Could we show up more as peoples on the planet that way? Could we learn how to be a little bit more accepting? Could we learn how to, have a broader scope of friendship through the modulum of self-respect, right? Is that, look, we all deserve the right to be independent, and we all deserve the right to be, to live to our highest potential, and we should all want that for each of us at whatever level that is, that we're all living that way. Like, that's kind of, to me, the core of what drives my friendship. And that's where
Yeah.
I think my goals are set. And so when it comes to close personal friends and the people that I spend a lot of time with, it's going to be people who can also agree with that, who can also believe that, like, there's hope for humanity. I'm not going to give up on that. I think that, I know a lot of people,
For
it seems like
sure.
people want to, and we see all this, it looks like the world's terrible out there and all that kind of stuff, but I don't want to live my life without hope for humanity, right? I want to have hope that
We
and
already have
believe that
it.
we can, yeah, that we're going to go far and that we're going to continue to excel and do well and we're going to figure out the challenges that
With
we have.
good people.
Yeah, because if three people can come together in a minute and do things that they were never prepared to do and do it well and an amazing against all odds because it's what's needed in the moment, there's millions of people on the planet that can come together in the same way and we can figure things out. We just need to figure out how to come together, right? And how to hold space with each other like that. I think that's kind of what the practice of being a good friend and developing good friendships, like, I think it helps us show up in the world in a better way.
Yeah.
Totally. I mean, like we have our time tested action speaks friends that have been filtered through, and it takes a while for that to happen sometimes, you know. But then, like, I'm pretty much a friend to everyone to some degree or another. Like, I'm just that guy that's a friendly guy that is always gonna like help you and like whatever I can without being taken advantage of and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, but but to be friendly, there's definitely different degrees of our friendship. You know, so many business friendships and stuff like that. Like people that respect and appreciate your character and your you know your position. You know, and especially when it's universal and it's based off like a common denominator that's shared between all people. Like I feel like we uh, have a unique skill set of being able to like I don't really haven't met anybody that to some degree or another I can't relate with, you know? Like so there's like
Yeah, you can
yeah,
find some common ground, and it's
yeah,
that
dude.
search for the common ground that builds friendships, and
Yeah. No, well, what's funny about Katie and Jen is um I hated them and they
Oh
hated
my God, she said
like
hate.
no joke. Like
Oh my gosh.
so Jen went to a different school in high school. Katie and I went to the same school and we hung out with the same group of people. But she did not like me and I did not like her. She even like I had still there's proof in my yearbook. She threatened to kick my ass in my yearbook because I was friends with her boyfriend and we just did not like each other. And Jen was friends with Katie and like they were besties, but Jen just did not like me at all. Like, and so we just stayed away from each other. Like, I hate you, you hate me, whatever. Um, but we had a friend, Alex, who we kind of like hung out with all the time. And I will not get into the details of why this happened, but Alex picked me up one night and he's like, "We're going to Katie's house." And I was like, "Why, of all of our friends, why are you taking me to her house?" You know?
yeah.
And I showed up there and we had this because of, the reason he took me is like, you guys now have this one thing in common. And he took me over there and we now were like the only two girls in this group that had this one thing in common. And we sort of were like, okay, well, I guess like we should talk about it because we are the only people who have this in common. And we became friends and we became super fast friends at that point, strangely enough. And then so like she started taking me around with her and Jen was like, "Oh Jesus, like why do you have to keep bringing Shannon around?" And we went to Mexico one time because Alex's parents lived in Mexico, and there was one night when like everybody was like sunburned and drunk from the day or whatever, and Jen and I were the only ones who were not feeling bad, and we wanted to go out, but we were like the only two people willing to go out. So we just sort of were like, all right, I'll go out if you go out. And so we went, to this bar and down the street and just like we're sort of in a weird roundabout way, sort of forced to hang out with each other, like, and realized, wait, you're not half bad of a person. And we actually had some stuff in common. And we just sat there and talked through why we didn't like each other and like why they were just such superficial reasons. And then we became friends. And then it's been the three of us for going on 30 years now.
And
Wow.
communication is such a powerful tool that we can leverage and or neglect so easily and create these tangled up like imaginary situations that aren't even real. And but if we can like have the wherewithal to like, ask questions sincerely in a way that, isn't, and like to just get to the bottom of it, to make sure that there's a mutual understanding. um
Yeah.
and always at least aim for that to some degree or another, to get the most out of whatever interactions that we're, that destiny brings us, even.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because like the reasons that like we didn't like each other were so superficial. And it's like once we broke past that superficial layer, like there was a lot of depth to be had in our conversations and our interactions with each other and our friendship, you know?
Yeah, being able to
And
communicate is an important
And
part of it.
and
yeah,
we talked about friends, the unexpected ways that friends shape us and help us. And like so you had that friend Alex that did something unexpected and kind of took you into a situation that you didn't think, you even wanted to go into. And then you've literally benefited from that interaction for
Yeah,
30 years.
yeah,
That's amazing.
yeah, yeah. It's
yeah. I mean,
sometimes you just,
sometimes,
oh, go ahead, Shane.
I mean, like the people that cross our path in this miraculous space-time continuum, like human experience, like sometimes it's meant to be, and we gotta like always be paying attention. Like sometimes it's odd, but like just the kindness that I give out when I'm out and about, like, you know, it'll come back to me. Like it's almost like the universe is talking to me through the people I'm interacting with to some degree or another if I pay attention. But sometimes like, you know, like when Clint crossed my path and where I worked, like our friendship changed my trajectory forever at work. I tripled my income, like the principles and stuff that he's, teaching, with crack the code, and then I was able to apply these same principles that I always have known, but things that like I've forgotten along the way. And just having that friendship and seeing that same spirit of friendship, like uh, perpetuate into other people's success, and everybody sharing their best information, and we all benefit from it in the end and end up in green pasture as a result. Beautiful.
We- and you think about that too, like what's beautiful about that, yeah, had, I wouldn't have been in that situation where we would have met. And despite the manager employee relationship, we were able to, we had a professional friendship, I think, during that time. But, after we moved on and stuff, it's definitely the friendship has continued and evolved beyond the business relationship. But I wouldn't have been in the position to be there had it not been for Brent, who extended friendship toward me, right? Did kind of a pay it forward kindness. He saw in me talent and ability and recommended me. And just like Shannon's friend Alex, kind of pushed her forward. He's like, you should really go into leadership,
Yeah,
and
dude.
should consider doing this. He's like, I think that you'd be really good at, working with the team. Like he goes, you're a hard worker, you care about people, you're fair, you're committed to quality, all this kind of stuff, and encouraged me to take that step forward. And that step forward, didn't just change my life, but it inadvertently and indirectly changed your life. And, that's like that power of, he was just supporting what he thought was good in the world, and taking steps to
But also,
encourage better things. But that trickle effect, and most likely, if you think of it, someone else probably did that for him. So there's a chain of
but
love that is passed from, hand to
but
hand.
but it's like real recognized, real kind of stuff. It wasn't just given out like willy-nilly. You know what I'm saying? Like
Right. Yeah.
there was something that he saw in you, something you saw in me, something that we've all seen each other.
And
And
someone saw something in him at some point too. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And
dude.
yeah, it's incredible, right?
And we can't do it by ourselves. So getting the right people involved is so critical to the outcome. And so when
Yeah.
you see it in somebody else, and like, I mean, meeting y'all was right on time for me, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, and like, in the beginning when you were my boss, it was strictly business. But interestingly enough, it's the same like principles and character and moral compass and all that stuff that makes you successful in business and business relationships on that side of the fence, and then also in your personal relationships. It's the same stuff all the way across the
Yeah.
board. That really what we're talking about here, it's all for that. It's applicable to your own individual like experience and mission or whatever purpose, and then in the world and our career and what we can do there, but also like with our families and our people over here. You know what I'm saying? And to be able to like bring it all together, like button it all up to one thing where it's all kind of the same. It's all built on the same stuff. Where people love you in all of those areas, and you love yourself. Like it's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, it's it's good looking out, right? It's interesting. It makes me think about there is this element of just loving kindness where you're seeing someone or seeing something with potential and you're encouraging it and
Yeah,
supporting it and seeing the best and wanting to increase well-being, not just for that person, but knowing that increasing well-being for them also increases it for you and everything. I mean, to me, like that's kind of the basis where good, healthy friendship starts with, because I think
yeah,
that there's also, I think that friendship in certain situations could potentially be like a little bit of a trap. I know that there's been times where I've been with a group of what I thought were my friends, and we're having a good time. We're celebrating. It feels fun. It feels exciting. It feels like you belong, but really what it is, it's just a bunch of people with, bricks on the gas pedal, all going at full speed, like, with no no help, no guidance
yeah.
or plan or anything, and it can be disastrous, or sometimes it can feel like a trapping, like no one wants to move forward. And so I think that, like, to me, to get to that point of having really good friends, you have to go, okay, I know what's good for me and I know what good feels like, and I'm going to move in the direction of what's good for me. I believe your friends will be moving in that direction with you and will support you in that
Totally.
path, right?
It's like a
And that's
freeway
like a
system.
define. Yeah.
Like some are going the same direction, they enter, and some exit. And even here, like in Chicago, where I'm staying, it's a temporary living situation, lots of people, and I'm meeting like good people, and like we're, giving, shining each other. But at the end of the day, like I got to go to, I found a little kind of a little sacred space where I can go and like beautiful park and like let my dog run and write poetry and get on calls and stuff like that. I have to go do me, because if I don't do me, then I'm not doing myself any good. And myself doing good is the service that I can provide for the people that I love, my friends and family, and those that deserve it. So to be able to be a best friend and do what I came to do, which is, that, um, it's critical for me to have time. I've already got my friends, I've already got the people. And so
Yeah.
what's best for them is for me to bring my best. But by doing that, other people naturally through time are going to seep in. And it's those people that we're meant to find each other. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Or yeah,
It makes me think about what Wayne Dyer said about, you know, being alone isn't as bad if you like the person that you're alone with. And
yeah,
like I think it's a really beautiful kind of perspective to bring into the concept of friendship is like you need to be friendly to yourself too. Like if you really want to be a good friend and to know when you're in a good friendship, you need to be friendly to yourself too, right?
there
Like
you go.
you cannot be, if you are enemies with yourself and you
Yeah,
try to make friends,
not
you're going to make
helping.
friends that are going to be enemies with you or you're
Yeah,
going to be enemies with, right?
and those friendships are going to like make your most important friendships like like you're not going to be nurturing them if you're giving your
Yeah,
energy, other, yeah,
you'll isolate yourself away from those who have realized that, wow,
yes,
that's not
that
healthy.
are real your people,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah,
And we do that sometimes because we only have, as Shannon said, so much bandwidth. You know what I'm saying? And so if
yeah.
we hang out with like all these people that aren't good for us and we're probably not good for them, and like whatever it might be like some like rush for the moment or whatever, like pretty smiles, I'm staying away from them. I mean, not always, but like for the most part, like just trying to mind my own business, monk mode at the park with my dog. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, because
Yep.
I have my friends, I have y'all, and I have my family, and I got more than I feel like I deserve. You know what I'm saying? I'm super blessed. So if nothing else happens and I meet no other people, I already kind of feel like I made it just with the people that are still with me. It means everything to me.
Yeah, and it's amazing how that self-satisfied state of mind actually makes you an extremely friendly person. Like, you know what I mean? And gives you a lot of bandwidth, a lot more space to be friends, right? It's incredible. It's one of those things, and you and I were talking about this earlier. Even like you think like in I've experienced this, I imagine other people have in my dating years that like, you're trying to, it feels like when you need attention and you want attention and you want love or friendship, it's like you stink and nobody will give you the time of
Totally.
day. But as soon as you say screw it and you go, I'm just
Yeah.
going to do me, it's like all of a sudden you're the most popular person in the neighborhood. Because it's that change, it's that empowerment of, look, I'm just going to show up on this planet and be the best version of myself. That is oddly highly attractive to other people.
You know, it's so silly that I'm just going to throw just a little shame factor situation in. So a long time ago, I was living in Scottsdale, and I had a roommate that was from New Jersey, and we're both restaurant managers, and we go all the time. We always were interacting with girls, or whatever. But like, I was writing for a magazine, I was writing poetry, and like working out, and like I just like doing my own thing. You know what I'm saying? Staying, keeping my eye on the ball, and but by doing that, like, I don't know, man, like it just got interesting, like Deuce Bigelow style, you know? And
Yeah.
and he was always like, dude, he's like, you got the Panther approach. And I was like, what does that mean? He was like, dude, you just sit back, like, and just do your thing and let it come to you. And I'm like, that is I'm not trying to let it come to me, but it does seem to, like, if you go like pushing or looking for it, like it's not coming. But if you
Yeah.
just do what you should be doing no matter what anyway, for whatever does come and whatever you already got, like just handling your own shit and taking care of yourself and being the best who you can be, then everything else is going to work itself out, you know?
Yeah, totally, man. When I think when I'm taking on new clients and we're going through the Find Your Path program, and we go through that process. Sometimes what people want more than anything is that connection. And what's weird is when you want it so bad, you can't help but need it. And it's in this weird way, you push it away. And it's always, if I can help a person to understand what it is that's driving that anguish, that lack, that gap, and identify how to close that gap within themselves first, right? That all of a
Yeah,
sudden that need and the want goes away. And as soon as the need and the want goes away, all the friendships and the lovers come rushing in. Like, you know what I mean? Like everything gets
totally.
reconnected. And it's this weird thing. It's like when we fall into that mindset of, I don't have this, I need this, it's like we disconnect ourselves from our power. We disconnect ourselves from all the magic that makes us us. But as soon as we will close that gap, we plug back in and it's like everything lights up and the world starts to function in a better way. And you're starting to make better relationships and you're building, new relationships and expanding your friends and family and all that kind of stuff. And
Yeah,
it's magical, and so like, eh, you know, uh, is friendship by itself like, I
it's
don't
the
know,
right
this like,
friendship.
yeah, it's about the right friendship. It's the
It
quality of the
is.
friendship because, there are definitely, there are people that you can become friendly with that
Yeah,
friendship may not be in your best interest. And I've seen this and I've been in it. You know what I mean? And like, and it's hard sometimes to understand if that's where you're at. And But to do the self work first means first thing you're going to do is don't blame the friend that you're in the
Yeah,
bad situation.
we are who we
Right?
are.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like you got to turn back and look at yourself first and go, okay, wait a second. I'm walking this path. Nobody's making me walk this path. And I'm not, it's not hurting me or helping me. And I'm going to start walking in a pathway in a direction that is beneficial to me. And I guarantee you that if you do that, you will find out very quickly who your real friends are, because the
but
ones who are not your friends will lose interest or be frustrated with you, and the ones who are your friends will all of a sudden show up and go, I'm fucking proud of you. Like, you know what I mean?
yeah,
Because they love you.
yeah. I mean, and they will give you your space to go do you, and you may not talk to them for a couple weeks or whatever. But when you talk to them, it's like you talked to them yesterday. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Time doesn't matter to those friendships.
Yeah,
It's
it doesn't.
incredible.
And like, we're not trying to like. There's no expectation other than just like, oftentimes like I'll think of somebody that I really respect or look up to, and I will send them a text like, "Hey, I appreciate you," or "I love you." And if they don't get back with me, I'm not like, "Oh my God, they didn't get back with me." Like, I don't. It doesn't matter that, like just so they know that, like, it's important to me to like let people know and to like to be that change that we want to see in the world, just to be it, and like to put it out there. If I'm thinking about it, like, you're awesome, like I let you know. I'm like, hey,
Yeah.
I don't need it, you're awesome back, you know.
Yeah.
But
No, it
I
is. It
mean,
is. It's amazing, right? And it's a benefit, and it it's finding it out, right? There's also this part of like discovering how to have those quality relationships, right? That is an amazing part of the growth journey. I do think that sometimes, like, we meet people at certain places in our life, and the relationship, in a sense, and I'll say this, it sounds strong, is kind of doomed to failure, but absolutely necessary. Sometimes we'll meet someone to realize that, if there's a reflection of something in ourself that we'll find in that person, and maybe we both need to grow through something, or maybe we have some kind of codependent tendency that we're trying to satisfy through the connection of other people. And what we really need to do is learn how to be independent and strong upon, from ourselves. And actually the friendship or the relationship could contain friction, but that friction itself is what can help us understand who we are and what is really important to us and where our values are. And if we can respect that other person even through the differences that we're having as we're growing together, you can still be friendly with someone that you disagree with
absolutely,
and gain massive benefit from it.
for sure. Like, earlier I was with a older guy, like, I don't know, just older white guy, and like younger black dude or whatever, and everybody like awesome people. And the N word came up, and and like it became like a conversation, like between like what these words mean, and like the intention behind the word. And but at the end of the day, like, these people that you know didn't necessarily understand some of the cultural or social perceptions that a lot of people have, they were able to reach an agreement on something that was pretty like a heated topic, in a way that they were able to grow from it and move forward, from the communication and the talking through something, you know, and
Yeah.
you know seeing like growth happen, and the open-mindedness required to have these conversations, and but
Yeah. Yeah, well, developing that friendship, learning how to be
yeah,
friendly and learning how to give that space. I mean, it's part of it. It's how we break down barriers. And so
totally.
it's interesting because it feels like, in a way we're talking about, on one side, like friends and the close value of trusted friends, but also the value of learning how to expand your friendship, but also doing that with like setting boundaries, and I don't know. It's kind of messy and dynamic, but sometimes you just kind of fall into it, or sometimes, like Shannon, you were saying, like, someone just makes a connection for you, but I think it's important that we look for where our friends are and understand who our friends are and have the best network and be endeavoring to build the best network of friends that we can, not for the purpose of just knowing the person, but the purpose of building a support network, right? That's what I think maybe is at the core of this. Would you agree, Shannon? Is like it's about building that team that you can count on, right?
Yeah, totally. It's finding the similarities and accepting the differences. And even back to Shane's story just now, I was thinking, they say it in Ted Lasso, but I'm pretty sure it's Walt Whitman who said it. But I think
I love
it,
Walt Whitman.
be curious, not judgmental.
Yeah,
And I think that's probably the best way to go into any sort of potential
Yeah,
new friendship, ask the
mindful.
questions. Yeah, be mindful, be curious, and be open-minded to whatever those responses are.
Yeah,
And
and be the friend and or the person that you would want the other person to be. You know what I'm saying? I always try to be that example, like
yeah, yeah.
yeah. I think too, there's an element in there, like, it's not to say that a friendship can't suddenly take off and spark high levels of excitement from the beginning. I know, Shannon, when I first met you, like, the level of excitement, was at a 10 from the first minute going forward. And, that can happen. But even in that, like, we took time, right? Like, I remember
totally
there
it
was this
needs
point where
time.
on the first date, on one of our first dates, when I was taking you home, you let me drive you to the apartment complex, but you said you wanted to get out and you didn't want me to walk you the door. I was offering just to be friendly, right? And you're like,
Hmm.
no, like, I really don't want, I don't need everybody knowing where I live. And I respected that so much. I was like, that's
He
really
was just
smart
trying to be
because
friendly.
yeah, there's a lot of there's a lot yeah, there's a lot of weird guys out there, and there's a lot of people
There
that,
are though,
would
for
would
real.
do heinous
Hell
things and
yeah,
can be creepy.
good
And
for you, Shannon.
yeah, I
Thank
respected
you.
the
He's
respected
But
super
the
sexy.
you
I
did
feel like
you did get bonus points because you were very respectful to my request.
hell yeah, be a
You
gentleman.
didn't, yeah, you didn't get like upset about it. You weren't
No
offended.
way.
You were just like, yeah,
Like
no
you earned a
problem,
point with
right
him by
on.
saying that.
Yeah,
But
and
by
then
doing that, you earn points with him just by being
yeah,
like that.
yeah.
Yeah, man. Like even better. Like I just gave you a virtual high five just for the record.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I wasn't
ladies and
into,
gentlemen, that's what we are. Let's be that with each other. We're all
yeah,
royal if we want to be, and we should treat each other as such.
yep,
yeah.
totally.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, y'all and my people are how I got here, and it's like likely impossible for the survival of what is happening. I survived, and like an awesomeness, a tsunami of awesomeness is happening, and it wouldn't be happening without my friends and family. I mean,
Yeah.
I got friends in low places.
and and with that, maybe we should start bringing the podcast to a close,
Anyway,
Right, before
right?
it turns into karaoke fest over here.
Yeah, because I'm about ready to grab the mic. So no,
that was
Shannon, do you
lovely.
got some quotes for us today?
I do. Hold on one second. I had to pause because I didn't want you to hear me cough. Okay. All right. Like a couple good ones. They all are basically a spin on the same thing. So, Edna Buchanan said, "Friends are the family we choose for ourselves."
Mm,
Um, Christy Evans said, "Good friends are like stars. You don't always see them, but you know they're always there."
that's beautiful. I love that.
This one is unknown. Friendship isn't about whom you've known the longest. It's about who walked into your life, said, "I'm here for you," and proved it.
Nice.
Um, Mencia said, "True friends are the siblings God never gave us."
Oh wow,
Um,
that's powerful. Say that again.
uh, where is it? True friends are the siblings God never gave us.
Oh yeah.
Interesting.
No,
Yeah.
he did. God did give us.
Um, Elbert Hubbard said, "A friend is someone who knows all about you and still loves you."
Oh hell yeah. I'm blessed.
And let's see. And then I have two more. Ed Cunningham said, "Friends are those rare people who ask how we are and then wait to hear the answer."
Yeah,
And
right.
then this one's
That's
my favorite. It's Marcus Cicero said, "Friendship improves happiness and abates misery by the doubling of joy and the dividing of our grief."
yeah. Cicero.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Like, yeah, I love it. So many great friends, you know, and I always think like to me, one of the most I don't know, I just think it's a cool friendship in history is Socrates and Plato. I'm like, these guys were sending letters, over distances, way back in the day, just having discourse, kind of like what we're doing right now. We're just talking about things. We're trying going, you know what? This thing's out there and like how do we understand this? And what's your perspective on it? How do I see this perspective? And that friendship had an impact on like all modern civilization. Like, so it's amazing what the power of friendship can do and the ways it can change us and when we don't even expect it, right? So, all right, man, you know where I'm going next. Are you ready?
I mean, kind of, but I mean, whatever will make it work.
Go for it, brother.
Just some little context. Maybe I don't mention the word friends in this, but uh, the people that I have in my corner are y'all and the people that have been filtered through and my family and my people. I probably already said this before, but it relates. So anyway, here we go. Angel standing in my corner. Should be a dead man, but still walking. The voice in my head still won't stop talking. Wearing a path in between those trenches and gallows, battling wicked henchmen, demons, and shadows. Grew up in the fight club, so always boxing on thin ice, taking out hockey, taking hate out like hockey. As a warrior poet or a Jedi white knight samurai, I use this force and stand for the light and the tribe. The underestimated underdog advantage plan plus includes a big-hearted nemesis and savage, the Kraken when I have to be. But like Hercules, I believe God is both watching over and residing inside of me. With this dream team of angels standing in my corner of the ring, inspiring and coaching me, like Jesus, Martin Luther King, Bruce Lee, Bob Marley, Sam Houston, and Muhammad Ali, to fly like a butterfly and sting like a bee, reminding me it's for love and I can take any beating. The spirit cannot feel the black eyes nor bleeding, and in innocence the righteous cannot be defeated. It's like
Beautiful, man. That's
that.
powerful, dude.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
love it. And
Friends,
if anybody wants to read that, do you have that poem posted out there?
I mean, probably, but I don't know. I should put like
We
do
need
that.
you need we need to start dropping them in the Evolving Mindsets community
I
and
know.
Yes, you
yeah.
do, because that was fantastic, and that would be something I'd like
You guys,
to
you've been
read
blessed.
again.
Yeah.
Although,
Yeah.
let me just say I'm a little disappointed that I didn't get like Ode to Shannon. But
Oh.
Like,
maybe
hey,
next
like,
time. No, I'm
whatever.
kidding. I'm
I mean,
totally kidding.
oh man, you guys like put some
You
more into
gotta
my
rib your
silver.
friends. You gotta rib your friends.
Damn, damn. Y'all put the O in my mojo is all I'm saying. Anyway,
Oh,
appreciate
Shannon,
you.
how I love thee. Let me count the ways.
There you go. Keep it going.
All right. Well, thank you all so much. And for everybody listening in, thank you. We appreciate your support. We appreciate you tuning in and hanging out with us.
Big time.
We definitely would love to have you come drop into evolving-mindsets.com, say hello, check the community out for a couple weeks. If you want to hang out with us, sign up and hang out. I'm offering one-on-one coaching inside the community. We are building courses and programs and everything designed to help us figure out how to elevate our mindset and evolve our mindsets to a point where we can live the most happy, productive, and successful lives together. And
yeah.
we're looking forward to
Do
seeing
that.
you there. And
Yep.
that's it for us. So good night, everybody.
Love y'all.
Love you guys.
Gonna find your path, gonna lead the way, stride through the storm, never go astray. Always the truth and let your spirit roar. You're a force of nature, crash upon the shore.